your challenge with buying a Golden Age raw is trying to figure out how much to pay when some books sell so infrequently. Yeah, I mean, pricing Golden Age is definitely, I call it like more of an art than in the other than a science than in the other ages, just because you're really having to use sales prices in other grades and trying to approximate based on price per point. And price per point isn't always consistent between grades. A lot of times you'll have it where the buy-in for a book is very high, and then you have a lot of price compression for a few grades, and then it starts picking up again. But I mean, all you can do is make your best estimate and go with that. And that's what I do. I price like for tonight, I priced out 60 or 61 different Golden Age books for this. And, some of them rarely ever sell, like these Blue Ribbon comics. If you're not familiar, that's one of the titles from MLJ. And there was one that, let's find it. It was a big number, so it should be near the top here. Yeah, this one here. So Blue Ribbon Comics number 18, in a 6.0. I mean, these books, they just don't ever really sell. And so you have to make your best estimate. Sometimes you use other books in the same run, like maybe issue 17 or issue 19, and you look at what those ones sold for. Try to look for ones that have similar cover content, all that kind of stuff. But really all you can do is make your best guess and go from there. Yeah, if you want to learn about Golden Age values, I mean, the best thing to do is to watch auctions like this and familiarize yourself with the books and get subscriptions or a subscription to pricing services. Like in the future, when it comes out, Fanalytics, and as well you have right now, like I've shown tonight, I've shown Go Collect and GPA. I have cover price too. Like I have all of them. To me, especially with the amount of time and money I put into comics, like it's well worth it to spend 10, 20, whatever dollars per month to have that knowledge. It is, I tell people this is like, don't save money on the wrong things. Don't go cheap on the wrong things. And having that knowledge on pricing is well worth the few dollars. I mean, I know a lot of people will try to just use eBay sold listings, but that you only get 90 days. And especially if you're dealing with Golden Age, that is not enough. You need something that goes back further. And so that is always one, like whenever I make these videos about like tips for buying, tips for selling, having a pricing service is always one of the top things I talk about because it is so important. Okay. So I don't if that's a question, favorite pre-code artist. So if you're talking about pre-code horror, it's probably, I mean, it's tough, but I might have to go with, so Gus Rika is one that it's hard to not say his name because he's got some of the coolest covers like Punch 12 and Dynamic Comics 8, which are just some wild early covers. But if I'm thinking like the big names, might be Jack Davis. Like Jack Davis at EC, I mean, he has just some of my absolute favorite covers. And I really do. I like Johnny Craig. He's got a lot of the shock and suspense, or shock type covers, that are out there. But like Tales from the Crypt 35. I mean, this one and 46. Like this is, to me, like this is the werewolf cover. This is the werewolf cover for the Golden Age. But but even though my favorite werewolf cover is 46. Because I love this cover, and part of the reason is, to me, this is what the werewolf looks like in Harry Potter. so like I love the depiction of Harry Potter's of the werewolf in Harry Potter, and that's what that werewolf looks like, and it's very different from the one in issue 35. 35, it's that great like front on image of the werewolf, but this kind of like taller, lanky werewolf image, that's how I view it. So I mean, I'd probably have like my favorite pre-code horror artist. I mean, some of the greatest covers, like I said, are like Gus Rika, but and LB Cole has some really good ones, but Jack Davis is probably my if I had to like pick one. I like the detail of his work, and his work just seems like it's almost at like another level. It's just it's to me it's the best quality art that's on the covers in this era. But then if we're talking about like whether if it's not horror we're talking about, then it's Alex Schomburg. I mean, for me, like, and you saw that in that last video I did. I mean, 3 of the books I bought were Alex Schomburg covers. I mean, he is like for me the top of the artists in the golden age. But if we're talking about horror, I'm going to go with Jack Davis. It's amazing watching the interest in golden age skyrocket the last few years. I never thought I would see people so excited over romance and non-key G8 books. Yeah, I mean, romance, I mean, that's still a pretty tight market, you know, like that's part of why I did buy a few romance books early on when I was trying out different types of books in the golden age, when I was buying and selling some stuff. And I noticed romance books tend to sit longer, you know, they do. And so I'd say it's a much smaller buyer pool than horror and sci-fi and superhero. I mean, superhero, it's like the top, then horror, then sci-fi. Well, probably then horror, then good girl art, then sci-fi, then romance, then Western. Western is like all the way at the bottom. But yeah, but like pre-code horror, it definitely has had a huge boom. Good girl art has had a huge boom. And I think like Timely, especially Timely has really picked up. It's when you start realizing how tough it is to get some of these books, I think just made people want to make a more concerted effort to get them, and then didn't want to sell them once they got them. Alex Schomburg has been tops with me since 1988 when I started collecting Golden Age. Yeah, there's something about it. I mean, like that's without even knowing the artists when I first got into Golden Age. There's just certain things that drew my attention, and Alex Schomburg Timely World War II covers were a big one. Suspense 3. Like if you'd never seen Suspense 3 before, like that is one, you know, like that's one of those books I would love to own a copy of that book at some point. If you're not familiar with Suspense Comics number 3, it's considered arguably like his best cover, but it's, let's zoom out a little bit. So yeah, it's this one. And so it's an Alex Schomburg cover. LB Cole has some of the interior work, but just a crazy cover. And it's one of those things where when you look at, it's kind of funny because Suspense Comics 1, 3, and 4 all have very similar covers. And so if you go to like Suspense Comics 1 and you see like this is the cover, and you've got, you know, the branding iron and like devil character and a guy that's going to jump in, then you look at that versus this. I mean, just like you can tell the quality of art on this one is another level. And then when you go to issue 4, which is very early LB Cole, and so that's why I give him a little more, you know, grace on this one. Like this is, I think, like LB Cole's like 3rd cover. And so again, you know, you can see it's like these two like similar quality art. I'd say like the drawing of the woman is pretty good on this cover. There's something left to be desired with like the villains. Then this one, there's just, I don't know. It's not that impressive. Like 1, it's missing something, and 3 just has all of it. And so you can just really tell the difference in the quality of the artists at this stage in their careers. Longtime fan here. I'm always amazed at the variety of Golden Age books you pull out of the boxes and seem to know so much about. Super World Comics, Eerie Comics. Yeah. No, I don't have the Gerber books memorized, but I mean, there are certain things where you just, when you don't see a book, like for me now, like I talked about this a little earlier, but the thing that has really helped me has been watching all of these weekly Heritage auctions. I just see everything. And I also watch their signature auctions, or at least I watch I store books that are going to be up for sale. I can't necessarily watch them because they go on during the middle of the day sometimes, but I at least know the books are coming up. And so just seeing all that stuff really, it helps familiarize you. And I have a pretty good memory, so the stuff sticks in my mind. But that's why if there's a book I haven't seen before, like that Super World #2, I had never seen that book come up for sale before. And then when I checked, it was because that book had never sold since I got back into collecting, at least publicly. And so that's just wild. And so that was one. The other one that happened with was, I think it was Red Dragon 7. That is one of the craziest covers from the Golden Age. I'm pretty sure it's 7. Yeah. So it's this Japanese World War II like disintegration cover, and just wild, like a wild cover. And I remember that one popped up on Heritage, and I bought it when it came up on Heritage, and I was just, because I had like, I've never seen that book before. And so when that happens for me, like I've seen a lot of books now just in the last 4.5 years or so, or what is it, yeah, like 4.5 years. And so when something I haven't seen before pops up, it really catches my attention. And so like that was an example of one, and the Super World 2 was definitely an example of one. Yeah, I mean, so you said it seems like YouTube channels like yours and others showing Golden Age books might be helping interest, especially for pre-code horror. That's, I mentioned this earlier. That's part of why I've wanted to keep making these videos. Is I think it really does help familiarize people with some of this stuff, because otherwise you just might never see it. I mean that was a big part of it for me. Like it was hard for me to find YouTube content when I got back into comics that covered these type of books, and that was why I went onto Instagram a lot, and that's where I found people posting those types of books on Instagram. But yeah, no, I'm if that has helped bring more awareness to Golden Age, if channels like mine or Comic Collector Geeks or Alex Comic Order, people that show the more of the Golden Age books, then I'm all for it. Are there any Golden Age publishers not as respected as others? Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, there are a lot of, I probably can't even name a lot of them. There are a lot of Golden Age publishers. And that's why, that's one of the challenges with Golden Age versus Bronze, Silver, Modern, is that when you're talking about Bronze and Silver and Modern, I mean, there are some independents, but for the most part, it's DC and Marvel. I mean, it's really, you have two choices, and it's pretty clear cut. But with the Golden Age, I mean, there's probably 20, 30 publishers, I mean, there's tons of them. And some of them have, are consistently, high value books, like Timely in general, but even in so Timely, which became Marvel, which became Atlas, which became Marvel, you have like their mainstream stuff, like the hero stuff, like Captain America, Marvel Mystery, Submariner. And then you get into some of their more like romance or good girl art type titles, like Hetty Divine and Comedy Comics, and and this kind of stuff. And so there's big value differences, depending on that. And so that's one of the challenges with the Golden Age, is that it can be intimidating, because there's so much that's out there. There's a lot that, even if it's rare, it does not mean it has value. And even if you get it for a good deal, it may take you years to find someone else that actually wants it. And so you do have to, like, it is good to put in the time to learn. If you're looking at it from, an investment side of things. I mean, if you're looking at it from a collector side of things, maybe it doesn't matter to you. But if you're looking at it from something where at some point down the line, you want to have some type of return, or you want to be able to sell your books, then you do really want to learn what those big publishers are, who the big artists are, what the more popular titles are, those kinds of things. Because there's so much out there that even if, and yeah, the big thing is a lot of people will reference like the census and say like, oh, it only has 2 copies on the census. And it's like, that may be, but it could be that there are tons of copies out there, but there's just no value in the book. And so nobody gets it graded. And so the census can be misleading at times. So it's definitely something where, but yes, there are publishers that are definitely more respected than others.